I'm going to note that it's 5:30, and we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. The Texas Government Code permits this Board of Trustees to meet in a closed executive session for the following reasons, among others: to consult with the college district's attorneys on matters deemed privileged by the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct or Government Code 551.071, to deliberate regarding real property under 551.072, a prospective gift under 551.073, certain personnel matters under 551.074, security devices or security audits under 551.076, and economic development negotiations under 551.087. If the board meets in closed session, we will announce the particular section under which we will be doing so prior to initiating the closed portion of the meeting. Now I'd like to introduce our two students that are going to help us with the invocation and the pledge to the American and Texas flags, Josiah Outerbridge and Aaron Ravichandra. Thanks, guys.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please bow your head as we speak to our Father. Dear Heavenly Father, we worship your holy name, your magnificent name. We thank you for you to be our anchor and our source, and are most gracious for your continued presence. As we continue throughout our lives, we ask that everyone under the sound of my voice will be and is already blessed. We ask that you anoint every word that is uttered in this room, and that your will is served through every able body that is presented here today. Thank you for this privilege to serve you and for bestowing wisdom on us as we fellowship together. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, guys. Aaron and Josiah are very involved students here, and we appreciate you guys taking the time to come help us get this meeting kicked off. Okay, it does not appear that anyone has signed up for public comment, so we will move on to the reports phase of our meeting. Now we're going to have the Chancellor's Administrative Report.
Thank you, Chair Colkhorst, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome the Board of Trustees back to the Bryant campus this evening, and particularly as the board considers some items related to this campus and to the Rellis campus in Brazos County. I would like to extend my appreciation to Dr. Jimmy Bird and to Lori Clark, and to the Academic Technology Department. They're back there in the shadows, but Michael and team, thank you all so very much. Alex, Olivie, thank you so very much for making tonight's arrangement so comfortable for the board and for the staff and for the public. Well, trustees, I'd like to talk to you for just a moment about volleyball. Our second-ranked Buccaneer volleyball team will participate in the NJCAA National Championships Thursday through Saturday in Hutchinson, Kansas, after winning the Region 14 Tournament Championship earlier this month. Head coach Terry Gamble and his players enter the tournament with a 38-1 record so far this season. Very incredible. Among the team's postseason honors, Coach Gamble has been named the Region 14 Coach of the Year. Sophomore Jade Shelton was named Conference Player of the Year. Lexi Pettis was named Libero of the Year, and Reagan Casey was named Newcomer of the Year. Now for our health sciences update. On October the 25th and the 26th, Blen's Division of Health Sciences hosted a progressive simulation on the Rellis campus teaching emergency medical services, nursing, and rad tech students to work together to provide seamless patient care. With the assistance of simulated patients from the community, real patients from the community. Our students responded to a variety of emergency scenarios, assisting these patients, quote unquote, from their first response through the hospital care. And at this time, I'd like to share a brief video with everyone.
The event is called Progressive Simulation, and it allows the health science programs to work together. So the EMS students get to interact with the nursing students, radiology students, and so it's an opportunity to kind of create a simulated event where they can transport patients into the hospital and work with the other programs. So we have some people who come in from the community and act as simulated patients, and so they receive moulage, or makeup that looks like injuries, and they come out and act out the injuries so that our students can deal with live patients. So that presents kind of a unique opportunity where they have to communicate a little bit more than they normally would with our standard mannequins. And so then that interaction is very helpful. But then interacting with the hospital staff, having to give a report to somebody who's a stranger that you don't work with on a daily basis is the interaction that they're going to be dealing with all the time. And so this event provides us a lot of those opportunities that we don't typically get on a day-to-day basis.
Got here at 8 o'clock. We went into the debriefing room, and she kind of gave us a heads up as to what was going to happen. With all of the different departments kind of collaborating together today. And then before you know it, the EMS people were starting to bring us patients, so we could hear them over the radio kind of talking to each other, and then the ball was rolling after that. And so we just kind of had like a continuous flow of patients coming in, just like a regular ER. And before you know it, we were all done and back in the debriefing room.
I saw 3 cases today. Felt like a real hospital here at Blinn College, so it was really cool being able to do our job, hand off, let them do their job, and just communicate between the different groups. I loved being in a leadership position and leading my team and telling them what to do, so I had really fun assessing the patient, figuring out what to do next, problem solving. I think that patient contact is one of the most critical parts of medicine, and I think that you get so used to mannequins just sort of sitting there and letting you do whatever, you forget that you're dealing with real people and having to have actual conversations, checking up on them, making sure they're okay. So I think today was very important for us as future practitioners in medicine.
We're so proud of our students. And I'd now like to tell you a little bit about our graphics design program. In October, our Associate of Applied Science degree in graphic design was recognized as the best online associate degree program in the field by academicinfluence.com. This 60 credit hour degree program is available both online and on the Bryant campus, and it prepares students for immediate entry into the workplace with courses in digital imaging and publishing, computer illustration, web design, typography, digital video and photography, and art direction. And according to the U.S. Department of Labor Statistics, professionals in this field earn a median salary annually of $49,600. Well, not to stop there, let me tell you about our trucking career fair that we had. On Saturday, our Division of Technical and Community Education partnered with Workforce Solutions Brazos Valley and the Rellis Academic Alliance to host a trucking career fair on the Rellis campus. The event featured representatives from Blen's truck driving program and 15 truck driving companies from across the region, and it allowed students to register for training and simultaneously interview with trucking companies for employment upon graduation. Heavy and tractor-trailer truck drivers earn a median annual salary of $47,130 per year, and nationwide, the industry is experiencing a shortage of approximately 80,000 truck drivers. Well, on to some exciting news regarding our master plan and facilities development. At the Brenham campus, the P3 student housing facility, The overall project there is approximately 60% complete. The exterior painting, unit drywall and insulation, the interior texture and paint, and the setting transformers for permanent power in both buildings are now underway. The project does remain on schedule for substantial completion next June, with final completion scheduled for August. And there is an item, trustees, this evening on your agenda regarding approval for a possible name for this complex. And over to the Leroy Dryer Field. The construction manager at risk is executing contracts with subcontractors and beginning procurement for items with very long lead times. You'll probably hear more about that later this evening. Additionally, the construction manager at risk has prepared a logistics plan to begin the mobilization. This project is scheduled for completion at the end of next September of 2022. And now at Old Main. At the Old Main building, the items with long lead times again, such as lighting and HVAC equipment, have been ordered. The demolition of the building's current HVAC equipment and the rough-end work for electrical and data cabling are now in progress. The furniture selection and the pricing to replace the storm-damaged furniture is nearing completion. This project right now remains on schedule for completion in March of 2022, this coming March. And now to the Rellis Administration Building. At the Rellis campus, the Administration Building, the issues regarding the procurement of roofing materials has been resolved, and the permanent roofing arrived earlier this month. The end-wall rough ends on the first and second floors are complete, and the installation of exterior weatherproofing and windows continues. Trustees, an item requesting authorization to purchase window treatments as well as network and audiovisual equipment is on this evening's agenda, and we anticipate placing another item on the December agenda requesting authorization to purchase the furniture. Now, this facility, too, I'm so pleased to say, is on schedule and should open in the fall of 2022, next summer. Trustees, finally, in the spirit of the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, I would like to express my appreciation to those who are present and those who are watching by video and audio. I'd like to thank all of our faculty and our staff whose hard work and dedication to our students has made this fall another very successful semester for Blinn College. I hope that the trustees, all of our faculty, all of our staff, and all of our students have a very safe, happy, enjoyable, and food-filled Thanksgiving. At this time, I'll return the podium to Chair Colkhorst. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Hensley. Now we'll move on to item number B in the reports, the presentation of financial statement package for the period ended October 31st, 2021. I believe Mr. Richard Cervantes is going to give us that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. I try to keep my hands off the controls as much as I possibly can. This is a second month of the fiscal year. We're 17% of the way through, so it goes all the way through the end of October. Our revenue through October shows $24.5 million, and our expenses in that 2-month period is 17.3, which leaves us a net of pretty close to $7.2 million. We do have some anomalies like we have had in previous last year, and they're going to continue. The other is showing here $268,000. A portion of that, very small, $150,000 or so, is for HERF money, and you're going to see the impact of that throughout the year. When we compare our revenue to this revenue this year to last year, we had 24.5 this year, and last year we had more, 30.5, almost $6 million difference. Now, $5.5 million of that was HERF money last year that had already been reimbursed, so that's included in the 30, and then there's another $700,000 that we're down this year in our enrollment and fees. Our expenditures are $24.1 million this year compared to $22.3 last year. So we are up $1.7 million of that. The largest part of that is debt service. We have a net increase in fund balance, a little less than $500,000 again, whereas last year we had $8.2 million, so $7.8 million is the change. And again, we had $5.5 million for HERF money that was included in last year, and then we are down about $700,000 you'll see in tuition and fees in a second. Our revenue comparison by source, you look to the far right, and there's what I keep talking about, the HERF money, whereas last year we had 18.59% of it was from that source, and now we have less or just about a little bit over 1%. So it is impacting some of these other percentages. Tuition and fees are going to be down there. You see it's less just because of that percentage over there in the other. Auxiliaries are going to be up. Our tuition and fees revenue compared to budget is at, we budgeted $69.2 million, and our total net tuition is $15.8 million. So we're at 22.9% of that budget. Again, when we compare that to last year we budgeted $11 million less than what we budgeted this year, and we still have a higher percentage than what we had last year. Our tuition revenue, as I said earlier, is down $266,000. Out of district is the largest portion of that. Good news for in-district, although it's up a little bit, it is up. So in-district revenue for tuition is up. Our fee revenue, however, is down across the board. Our general fee is still down, but it's made some headway from what we had last year. Lab course fees are down. There's a distance ed fee that's included in that, that students are taking less of those courses because we are face-to-face. I highlighted the workforce non-credit fee. We had a question last month from the board why this was so much different. There is a answer. Our grants that we receive for this revenue pay for fees associated with these courses that we offer. In the summer of 2020, before last fiscal year even began, we had a grant that we were unable to complete our revenue. It would attribute pretty close to about $190,000. We asked for and this was during COVID, so we could not complete the assignment. We asked for an extension from the sponsor. The sponsor gave it to us. So we realized $190,000 more last year than what we would normally have. That would bring us a little bit up compared to that if we took that $190,000 off the $330,000. Hope that makes sense. I'll stop for any questions. I will say this, that grants they're very volatile. They start and they stop at different times of the year, and they don't coincide with a fiscal year. And to give you an example of three that we have in the pipeline right now, we have one that started in July of 2021, so before the fiscal year began. They last 1 year. And then we also have another one that started in September. It's going to end at the end of August. And then we have another one that started in October. So they stagger them. They don't do it purposely. It's just the timing is dependent on the grant itself and when they want to start it.
Mr. Simonis, can I ask a question about that? Is all the workforce training that we do, is it contingent on grants coming to us, or do we go out and initiate contact on certain programs or activities or industries to get people involved or to get students and so forth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would feel more comfortable asking the resident expert to respond to that. So, Vice Chancellor Anderson, would you mind?
Good evening, Chair, Dr. Hensley, trustees. And the question again, sir?
Well, my question is that he's saying that the grants didn't come in, or there weren't grants that were carried over. And my question is all of our activity and workforce contingent on us receiving some grants, or do we go out and do industries, various industries in our service area that we can, do we contact, or they contact us and initiate programs, or they pay for their employees, or how do we, how does that work, that we, I mean, where do we get our student load from? Is that load, L-O-A-D, load, student load?
The workforce, credit-free classes can be affiliated with grants that are essentially sought after. We have Blinn College District individuals that will go out and work with business and industry and essentially recruit topics that are related to state-of-the-art technologies in many of the businesses and industries that are in our Blinn College District. That's a fraction of the funding that comes in. Partial workforce is related to grants. We also have individuals that attend Blinn College District and will pay out of pocket. Certainly, if they're eligible for scholarships, that would be another opportunity for them to participate in workforce. It's interesting because we have, when we talk about workforce, we have many different avenues of workforce. We have credit-free workforce development courses that would be related to the grants. We have credit-bearing programs that lead to associate applied science degrees in the health sciences, as well as the trades. We also have many programs that are related to what's called CTE, Career and Technical Education. So essentially every one of our divisions within Blinn College District also has career and technical education programs that are related to the Texas 60 by 30 workforce. So when we talk about workforce, we really want to corral the terminology in, because there's many different answers depending on the context of workforce.
It's good. I mean, I think, Dr. Hensley, maybe we could have a more complete discussion about that sometime. It might be good for all of us to learn a little more about that.
We'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, what he said.
Yeah.
It is, I'm glad that he was here, because his answer shows the depth of which you would have to respond to this, and I certainly don't have that capability of doing that. I would want to add one last thing. I mentioned that there's 3 in the pipeline. Those 3 are pretty much close to about $700,000. Can you see that how much money is going to end up coming in this fiscal year? Our housing and food service revenue compared to budget, we budgeted $9.4 million, and to date we have a little bit over $2 million, which is at 21.6%. When we look at the auxiliary service revenue, the total across the board there's some good signs here. There's $304,000. Housing, however, is down compared to some of these others. You'll see food service is up. Part of the response or answer to that is that we have a higher percentage of our students certainly have occupancy at Mill Creek, but they're still using our food service. But they're not staying in our Blen dorms or Blen housing. They're staying over in the P3. Bookstore is up. That's probably a timing issue. I'm proud to see that we're at $633,000 for parking and up there also. I think that's probably attributed more to more students being on campus face to face than what we had last year. Our total expenses are up, as I mentioned earlier, $1.8 million. The bulk of that is right here in debt service, and that's the 2020 bond that we issued at the beginning of last year, so $2.1 million more. Our E&G expense is also up, as we would expect, not much, $400,000 or so, but we're now beginning to travel. We're having consumables. We have some of those operating expenses now as a result of our employees, and also because of students coming back on campus. Our fiscal year 2020 expense by category shows a $1.8 million increase, which is 8%. I will direct your attention to the yellow, the debt service. That's the biggest portion of it, that debt service that we paid at the beginning of October. That percentage will continue to shrink all the way down to April when we make another payment. That would mean some of these other items will probably grow. I would expect salary and wages. It's a little early to be able to do any comparisons because some of these anomalies. Our expense comparison by category, $1.8 million. You can see the Blen blue on the left, and actually our salary and benefits are down as a percentage, and actually totals are also down a little bit. Expenditures are up a little bit. Debt service is the big one that we mentioned earlier that we paid out of this 1.7. If we take away the debt service entirely, you would actually show the operating expense being down by 2%. And the biggest portion of this is in auxiliary as being, obviously the Blen blue on the far right as being up. Institutional support is down, and instruction is also down. Our student cash and refunds in October totaled $2.6 million. Look at the boxes to the right. They are attributed to most of it. The student payments that we received, $4.8 million, but we also issued student refunds of $2.2 million. Our other cash receipts in October totaled $4.7 million. The state appropriation was a big part of it, our regular state appropriation. We also had some insurance proceeds from some of the freeze damage that we had. And the grants, contracts, and miscellaneous, a big portion of that is our taxes. Our use of cash in October was high, $17.9 million. That debt service of $6.8 was a big part of it. Again, we won't have that service, have another debt service until next April. Construction, obviously the large projects that we have ongoing. Payroll is still hanging pretty close to around $5.4 million, over $5 million, and accounts payable of $3.4 million. In summary, we received $2.6 million in cash from our students. We also received from other sources $4.7 million, but we used a hefty almost $18 million of cash. We had that money in the bank where we've been able to pay all those bills. Our unrestricted cash and cash equivalents is down compared to what we had last month. We knew that some of that would come down because of that debt payment. It came down a little bit more, and it's probably because some of these projects that we have ongoing. I would direct your attention to the funding for current projects on the far right, that $51 million. That's what we already have out there. And then on the very bottom, the funding available for new projects, $15.4 million. I visited with the Chancellor yesterday and was telling her it would be my expectation that because of her funds that we have available for this fiscal year, that we will probably add another $15 million to that just from the federal monies, let alone the number that we normally get from as unspent money in exceeding our revenue. So I'm thinking we're going to be over $20 million increases where we'll end up end of year, but we'll check that number later on. Higher education emergency relief funds, we're pretty close to expending all the student awards that we had received. That institutional funding and institutional strengthening, that's where the $1.7 million that we still have that we can draw, $17 million that we can still draw down from the federal government. A portion of that you may recall that we have attributed to the HVAC in the Old Main, $1.6 million. So it's not going to be $17 million that's going to come down to the bottom line. Higher education, we've spent $70.3 million. A large portion of that, as I said, is the direct student awards. And you see on the bottom the money that's available from the funds on the far right that's still available for us to spend. Stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Zavondas, are there any areas of our financial picture that give you pause?
Mr. Chairman, there probably are always areas that give me pause, but as I look at them, I feel comfortable with them. There's a lot of money moving around here, and just this afternoon, just as an example, on the capital master plan, we told this board that we felt very comfortable that we would be able to pay for almost all of phase one, and if not all of phase one, by our unrestricted cash. We're keeping a close eye on that. So I asked our folks to give us an update every 6 months and see where that's going. Because here's what's going to happen. It's not static. It's dynamic. So things get added to that, and we just want to see how that's going to impact us. I feel pretty comfortable right now that that's a fairly conservative number. I mentioned the $15 million that I believe will go into the bottom line, and we have forecasted another $7 million we believe will go onto that bottom line too. That $7 million is a very conservative number because we've been hitting somewhere between $10 and $15 million. So maybe it's not very conservative, but it's on the low end. It's very much on the low end. That responds to your question.
I don't want to take all of Douglas's time, but let me ask you that, Mr. Cervantes, you've always on the debt service, you've always said we needed to, or you felt good if we stayed below. What was it, about 8% or 6%?
8% or 8% was a threshold. We had 7% actually is the number that I'm recalling, but I think because of the anomalies that we've had the last 2 years, that number is a little bit higher. We'll still be able to make the payments, but that's a percentage of the revenue, Mr. Moser. So our revenue has gone down, and so when we look at that, it's gone up a little bit, but we're still making our payments, and we'll be fine. And just to add on to that, so the number you saw up here was a high number. It will continue to shrink down. That's because you're not going to make another payment until April. And so that number is going to come down considerably. But that's percentage of source. So it's like different numbers for different purposes. That one is showing us how much of our every dollar, what percentage that we spend on debt service, and what that's showing us right now. It's a really high number. I expect by the end of the year, that number will come in for every dollar we spend, 7 cents of it is going to be covering the debt service.
And that does this include the new building, the one that we just finished and opened up? That was the debt service? Yes, sir.
There's two now. Those were added. That was a 2019 bond for the science building, and then for the 2020 was for the Relis building that we're building now. We borrowed another $18 million.
And is that in there?
That's in there, yes.
Okay, so we got everything in there.
And you talk about pause. That's another one we keep an eye on pretty closely too. So we know in 2 more years that number is going to the debt service is going to start to go down because some of those bonds are going to go away, right. And so we're going to have another opportunity. And I don't want to say what the number is going to be, but it's going to be sizable that it will end up going down. That's going to be an opportunity for us to look at the possibility, look at the market, and see whether or not our conditions are ripe for us to go out there and borrow again, moving towards our phase 2 operations.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the time, Douglas. I appreciate it.
I think Mr. Mosier wants me to ask you a question.
Almost got away.
This is just a clarification for my purpose. Now that I'm also serving on the Blinn College Foundation, I've noticed that we reflect about $21.4 million in assets in your packet, but that apparently is exclusive of unrealized gains that are in the portfolio, which is probably at least another $10 million. Am I correct in that?
Yes, it's sizable.
Yeah. Okay, so basically you're reporting here just corpus and actually income earned year to date minus the scholarships, and there is nothing being reflected for the unrealized gains that exist.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bohart. We are required to report that. That's why on the far right, I think, we do have market value on there. I thought that's what we were doing on ours once upon a time. Maybe I'm incorrect there, but from a general accepted accounting principle, we would be uncomfortable. It would be very, it wouldn't be good for us to report revenue that we have not received. And in our opinion, in terms of GAAP, until we sell that investment, we're not realizing any money on it. It's the market conditions. So just another example. Tomorrow, that same $10 million that you spoke of, that's the value, the market value, could come down considerably. And so we basically try to focus on the cost is where we're at. Now, there are some earnings, as you said, that have actually been realized. Those are usually bonds and some of the fixed earnings that actually that they have investments in that they'll realize those. That's what's happened over the years that has built up, in addition to the corpus. So you'll see the corpus on the left, and the very next column is the actual earnings that have been accumulated as a result of selling or as a result of actually earning that interest. They will deposit that money into our account.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Cervantes? If not, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your report. We're going to now move on to item 5 in our agenda, consent items. All items listed in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Trustees and will be enacted upon one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a trustee so requests, in which event the item will be removed from consent and considered in discussion and possible action. Trustees receive agenda materials in advance of the meeting to prepare for this business to be conducted. I am looking for a motion to approve. Trustee Benke, looking for a second. Trustee Ehlert. Before we vote on that motion, I think that Trustee Bohart would like to read a statement.
Yes. Consent agenda item 5M, I will be abstaining from voting due to being the subject nominee for the Washington County Appraisal Board. So therefore, I feel I do need to abstain from that item.
Thank you, Douglas. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Now we will move on to the discussion and possible action items part of our agenda on number 6. First item is authorization for the administration to negotiate and execute a contract for architectural services and seek proposals for construction manager at risk services related to the administration building on the Blen Bryant campus. I believe, Mr. Cervantes, you're going to take the lead?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to hand the next two off to Mr. Feldake, and he's going to make the presentation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Colcourse, Dr. Hensley, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to come and present this agenda item before you. I'm here presenting agenda item 6A. This is a request for authorization for administration to negotiate and execute a contract with Kirksey Architecture for architectural services, and also a request to seek proposals for construction manager at risk services related to the new administration building here on the Blen Bryant campus. I'm going to again show you the presentation that we continue to show you. Maybe before too long we'll have an architect to provide some better renderings for us. So just as a reminder, this is our project number 6 on our implementation of the first phase of the master plan, the Bryant Administration Building and the associated projects. This includes a new 45,000 square foot administration building, a new road extension from Nash Street, which will tie back into campus, a North Monument sign. Of course, to do all this, we're going to need to demolish the church and the adjacent structures there on that north property that we bought last year. As well as, once we're all done, we'll be demolishing Building S as those functions will be moved out and moved into the new administration building, along with our occupancies there at the Tejas Center. The overall budget for this is just under $31 million. And with your authorization, we would get started on this this evening by hiring the architect. And the anticipated completion would be in FY24, sometime in the fall, probably in November move-in, so that we don't affect the student services operations. With that, at the September 2021 regular board meeting, the board authorized administration to seek qualifications for architectural services related to the programming, planning, design, and construction of the administration building on the Blen Bryant campus. In response to the district's request for qualifications, we received 8 qualification statements. The search committee then reviewed those qualification statements. Two of the firms really rose to the top of that. Those firms were then interviewed on October 26th. And from those interviews and those qualification statements, the administration recommends negotiating and executing a contract with Kirksey Architecture from Houston, Texas. This authorization would also allow administration to seek proposals for construction manager at risk services. Once the board receives the approval, or once the board approves that, we would then solicit the request for proposals. A search committee would review those proposals and bring a recommendation back to the board. Again, a reminder on this, funds for this project are available from unrestricted cash. And so with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
First question, Mark, are there the property, the church property, are there two adjacent properties that are part of that project?
I believe there are 3 parcels. There's
Three.
a church.
For the church,
And then there are 2
1
houses.
to
There's
4
one
family?
vacant piece of land. I believe that vacant piece of land used to have the snow cone shop on it.
Okay.
But that is since
So
gone.
it's the 2 additional ones past the
Correct.
church?
I'm not going to get the addresses
No,
right
that's
off the
fine.
top of my head.
Okay. I just drove by it earlier, and I just wanted to make sure there were 2, those 2 looked vacant.
Yes,
So-
yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay. Second question is, can you elaborate, give a little more detail on what the contents of that administration building are? And let me tell you why I'm asking that question. I was asked the question of, y'all sure are spending a lot of money on your administration by putting them in a $30 million building. I think we may want to change what that building's called, because it's actually going to be more student services related than having administrators in that building. Am I correct or incorrect on that? Okay.
So I can certainly elaborate on that. It will have administration. So basically, all the functions we currently house in Building S, whether that's administration, human resources, the police department, even the bookstore, will be moved into that building, as well as the student services functions that we currently have at the Tejas Center. We'll also be looking to move marketing in that building as well. And of course, bringing it a new upgrade, it's also going to be the gateway at the north end of campus, which is a fantastic aspect for that end of campus.
Yeah, I just think that the perception from the public is it's just an administrative building, rather than it's really providing a lot of services to the student population that we have too. So sometimes I think that explanation gets missed for the benefit of the public. So,
Yes, sir. Understood.
sure, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Mark, also will allow us to, I mean, it's not going to be a trade-out, but we will be saving on our lease, right? Mr. Simoni's right over at the, so I mean, it will be a savings in that respect. Is that not correct?
That's correct, Mr. Moser. We, right now, pay somewhere around $240,000 a year for Tejas. And
Right.
once we get out of that lease, we'll obviously forego that.
Mark, the, part of it is connecting a road there, and doesn't this project also open up an area of the campus for us to start looking at potential recreational opportunities
That's
for our
correct,
kids? Why don't
sir.
you hit on that just a little bit?
Yes, sir. In fact, I may just bring back up some of the presentation and see if I can get the cursor there. So there is plenty of green space in this area, and it is identified in future phases of the master plan to begin to develop intramural fields, maybe a soccer field on this north side of the road, also the possibility of maybe some softball fields, other game fields that our students could use in that area. And again, further on down in the master plan, there might be some other student activities in this area. So this does really open up access to this north end of campus, give us another way to get students off campus. We've always heard that there could be some congestion issues, but also some of the athletic activities that could happen as far as an intramural function in this area of campus.
Yes,
I have
sir.
a question.
Dennis.
So, you've got the church there, and you said there were 2 properties, so there's really 4. I drove by here, I drove by there too today. And, so are we gonna then own all of that little cutout right there where your mouse is?
No, sir. This is still private property. Blen does
Okay.
not own this.
Like that Holman,
This,
right?
and it's got kind of a little point that actually comes out, almost follows the road. The church property is the larger parcel. And then there are 3 kind of 75-foot wide, I'm not sure exactly how deep, but typical residential parcels that front the road. One of those is a vacant parcel, but 2 of those have residences on them, vacant residences on them. And all of those structures will need to be demolished before we can start this project.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions on this project? Hearing none, I would be looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that authorize the administration to negotiate and execute a contract with Kirksey Architecture for their architectural services and seek proposals for a construction manager at risk services related to the administration building on the Blen Bryant campus.
Okay, we've got a motion by Trustee Mosier. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Trustee Krausen seconds. All in favor? Oh, any other discussion? Any other question? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Moving on to item B, authorization for the administration to negotiate and execute contracts for the purchase of furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Relis Phase 2 building on the Blen Relis campus. Looks like, Mark, you're going to have that one as well?
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
this should do it for me this evening.
Okay.
Again, good evening. Item 6B is a request for authorization for administration to negotiate and execute contracts with Hodel window coverings for the purchase of window treatments, with Netsync for the purchase of network equipment, and with Avenex for the purchase of audio-visual equipment for the Relis Phase 2 building on the Blen Relis campus. At the June 15th, 2021 board meeting, the board authorized administration to seek proposals for furniture, fixtures, and equipment for the Blen Relis Phase 2 building, the administration building. And this policy, the board policy, CF Legal, allows for the use of pre-approved procurement lists through interlocal contracts with the state for certain purchases valued at or above $50,000. Using this process, we procured proposals from Hodel window covering for window treatments, Netsync for network equipment, and Avenex for the audiovisual equipment for the Relis building. Blinn College District's Facilities Planning and Construction Department, as well as the Academic Technology Department, reviewed these proposals. And based on the proposals, the administration recommends that the board authorize administration the board authorize administration to negotiate and execute contracts with Hodel window covering for $138,000 for window treatments, Netsync for $107,000 for network equipment, and Avenex for $1.837 million for the audio-visual equipment at the Relis Phase 2 building. The overall project budget for this, again, is $32.25 million, which includes soft costs of $6.5 million. The soft cost budget includes $4.35 million for FF&E, as well as $2.15 for the professional services. The costs for the FF&E items we're presenting to you are under the budget. However, I do want to make a statement that we continue to track some of the escalations that are happening for prices, as well as some of the longer lead times. We are beginning to experience some of those, and we're working actively to mitigate some of those in some of the upcoming FF&E project or items that we'll be bringing towards you. So we are working on dealing with those issues, but they are present, much like Dr. Hensley mentioned earlier in her presentation. With that said, this is under our budget, and we will continue to work to keep this project under budget. Funds for this project are available in the 2022 series bond funds, as well as the unrestricted cash. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Mark, for these 3 vendors, how do they look for lead times and price increases?
Well,
any idea at this point?
The price increases, we're good. We've got them locked for prices. Typically, especially on our AV, we have escalated the time frame to purchase AV. In past, we've allowed this to slip a little bit further into the winter. We need to get it purchased now because we are seeing longer lead times on the AV equipment. So that is the reason we've brought this ahead. The window treatment's not as much on the lead times, and the network equipment, again, we're bringing it to you early just to make sure that we get it in time. So we're trying to track that and purchase things as early as possible.
Douglas.
Mark, just a question or clarification, more or less. The budget for FF&E is $4,350,000. I added up these 3, and it's $2,082,000. Does that mean there's still more FF&E that's coming on for that $1,268,268? Are we through? and
There
got
is.
this
We
savings?
still have a very large FF&E purchase for furniture, and we're working through that. We anticipate bringing that to you at the December board meeting.
Okay.
That's the last large purchase. There's still going to be smaller FF&E purchases for things like refrigerators and microwaves and some of the lab equipment for this. We won't have nearly as much lab equipment in this building as we did at the STEI building. But the next big purchase is going to be furniture.
And
we're
that's
still-
part of that for,
Correct.
okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? If hearing none, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that the board authorize administration to negotiate and execute contracts with Hodel Window Covering, Inc. for the purchase of window treatments, Netsync for the purchase of network equipment, and Avenex for the purchase of audio-visual equipment for the Relis Phase 2 building on the Blen Relis campus.
Very good. We've got a motion from Trustee Bohart, looking for a second.
I'll second. Give a second.
We've got a second from Randy down there. And any other further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, looking at item C on the agenda, authorization for the administration to negotiate and execute a contract for engineering services related to College Avenue Street and sidewalk realignment on the Brenham campus. Mr. Cervantes?
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Mr. O'Malley is going to make this presentation as well as the two that follow.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hensley, members of the board, thank you all for having us here tonight. Proud to be in Bryan, Texas for this meeting. Let's see if I can figure this out. This one? Okay. Thank you, Eric. This agenda item has to do with the administration, authorizing the administration to negotiate and execute a contract for engineering services related to College Avenue and the sidewalk realignment on the Brenham campus. You may recall from our master plan, this is project number 7, and this project includes a 3-block section of College Avenue in front of Old Main, what is now the classroom building, and then the Bullock building, where we want to replace some sidewalk, add some lighting, set back the retaining wall, add some landscaping, and do a beautification project, if you will, along College Avenue. We solicited architectural qualifications, engineering qualifications after the September board meeting, received 4. And after review of those qualification statements from the engineers, the recommendation of the committee is to move forward with Kimley Horn and Associates for the design of this project. This project is being funded from unrestricted cash, and the schedule for the college's portion of this would be completed by the August of 2022. With the caveat on our schedule that if the state and the city get involved with some of the utility and other roadwork repairs in that area, it could affect the schedule. So the recommendation is to move forward with Kimley Horn and start the design process. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. O'Malley, I'm just curious. I know that when we cleaned up a lot of the Spencer Stadium area along Main there, we've already planted some things along that way. Was that a temporary thing, or is that kind of the way it's going to be looking in this project?
It'll continue to look that way until you get to the retaining wall. The retaining wall will be off, that'll be torn down and offset about 15 feet to the south onto the Spencer Block property. And so some of those have to be replanted in that area when we affect them with the construction of the retaining wall and that sidewalk. Hopefully we can salvage what's there and replant it. If not, we'll have to replace it. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
Well, I think it's on. I was just wondering about the city and the state. When is that, I mean, have you already started talking with them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We've had that discussion. There's not a lot of interest right now from both of those parties, and so if we don't see that that picks up any interest, we'll move forward with our project.
Okay.
Yes, we're having those discussions right now.
Okay, I am looking for a motion that the board authorize the administration to negotiate and execute a contract with Kimley Horn for engineering services related to the College Avenue Street and Sidewalk realignment on the Brenham campus.
So moved.
Is that Trustee Wells?
So moved.
Got one from
And I'll
Trustee Wells
second
and a
it.
second from Trustee Aylert. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Richard, but will this carry over into Spencer? Any of this work go into the Spencer Field area, or are we gonna?
We will be affecting the track some when we set back for the retaining wall construction, but the field will still be maintained as it is now for practices until we make other decisions there. But yes, sir, we'll be affecting it some on that one corner. That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
little.
you so much. We're moving on to item D on the agenda, authorization for the administration to negotiate and execute a contract for engineering services and to seek proposals for construction related to chiller replacement and building automation upgrades on the Blen Bryant campus. Mr. O'Malley, you on
Yes.
that one?
Thanks again.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. This project is related to our Bryant campus. Affects the buildings that we're in tonight and the other 5 to 6 buildings we have on campus for our students. We have a central plant that has 3 400-ton chillers, and one of those chillers has reached its useful life, end of its useful life. And our recommendation is that we need to get an engineer on board to help with the design of those improvements to replace that chiller sometime this fiscal year. And also, we want to look at our building automation system on the Bryant campus, which is very dated and antiquated and needs to be upgraded as well. And so we sought qualification statements from engineers for this project. We received 8 qualification statements, and the committee reviewed these and may have a recommendation to move forward with Jones DBR for this project. The project is funded through unrestricted cash, and we have a budget of $900,000. This authorization will also allow us to go seek bids for the construction of these improvements, and when those bids are received, we'll be bringing that back to the board for approval so that we can move forward with the project.
Right now, your estimate is $900,000 for that
Yes, sir.
project?
That's correct.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we authorize the administration to negotiate and execute a contract with Jones DBR Engineering Company for engineering services and also seek proposals for construction related to a chiller replacement and building automation upgrades to the Blen Bryant campus.
Thank you. Trustee Mosier makes the motion. Looking for a second? Second, Trustee Benke. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item E, authorization for the administration to negotiate and execute a contract for architectural services and to seek proposals for construction related to interior upgrades and access control upgrades on the Blen Bryant campus. Mr. O'Malley on that one too?
Thank you, Mr. Colcars. Yes, sir.
All right.
This too is a project here for our Bryant campus. This project is a continuation of interior improvements we've been making over the last couple of years. This will be our 3rd attempt to tackle these buildings on a smaller scale, if you will. And I think we're looking at building H and finishing building D with this authorization with some interior upgrades. We've previously done buildings A and G. And so we just have a few more to go, and we're trying to take it year by year as we can afford to make these interior upgrades. We also want to add on to the interior upgrades on this project and add some access control for a lot of safety and security reasons. That too, we have a very antiquated system on this campus. On all of our newer buildings and our new admin building that we will, student services building that we'll be building this next year, we have a new software and access control system there. We have everything new at Relish, newer system, and in Brenham, we've incorporated a newer access control system on our newer buildings as well. So we want to bring this campus up to date with access control, provide a lot more safety and security, and that's included in this project. So we went through the solicitation for qualifications on this project as well, received 2 qualification statements, and our recommendation is to move forward with Architect Studio for this project. The funds budgeted is $800,000, and the funds would come from unrestricted cash.
So we've done building A and B so far?
A and G.
A and G.
Both
How
areas.
has the student reaction been to those upgrades? Has it been good?
Yes, I think it's been very good.
Enhanced those buildings?
We've been certainly improved the flooring, the painting, the lighting. It's enhanced very much the use of those facilities. It added some life to those, and I think it's been very, very well accepted by our students. Yes,
It's
sir.
very important that we continue.
And our faculty and staff, excuse me. Yes.
Continue to fix up these buildings and make this campus the showplace that it should be. You know,
Right.
with the administration building, I think that's going to be a big step in the right direction. Any other questions, board, for Mr. O'Malley? If not, I'd look for a motion that the board authorize the administration to negotiate and execute a contract with the Architect Studio for architectural service and to also seek proposals for construction related to interior upgrades and access control upgrades on the Blen-Bryant campus.
I'll motion.
Trustee Aylert makes the motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
Second, Trustee Wells. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Moving on to item number F, approval of the naming of the P3 student housing project on the Brenham campus. Looks like Mr. Schubert, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Hensley, fellow trustees, I'll be passing this presentation. I'm joking. I'll be doing this one myself. Sorry, Mr. Cervantes, I had to do it. Trustees, as you know, we've got the new P3 coming up, phase 2 of the P3 coming over the Brenham campus. And as you're aware, when we did Mill Creek Call, we went through a process of selecting names for that. And it's really an honorary deal, a lot of some of it related to geographical areas, historical figures, those sort of things. So we reach out to the board, the faculty and staff, and we get their input from that, and we compile that list, and we bring that to the board officers for a suggestion. Now, trustees, I want you to hold on to your hats here. The suggestion that was given and approved by the board officers came from Mr. Mosier, who sits right here, your esteemed colleague, so I want to give him a shout out for that. His thought was we call it the Prairie Lee Hall for a couple of reasons. One, it's on Prairie Lee Street. The geographical location, of course, the namesake of that is Margaret Lee Houston, who was the wife of Sam Houston, of course, Texas historical figure. And the other reason was across the street is the Prairie Lee Cemetery, which has lots of historical figures from Texas, but also Carl A. Urbanke, who was instrumental in founding Blen College, is buried at the cemetery. And so lots of geographical connection there, and so our recommendation to the board officers, after Mr. Mosier's wonderful idea and recommending it to the board, is to name the new P3 student housing project on the Brenham campus Prairie Lee Hall. Stand for any questions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
now that I've recognized the source of that, I do have a series of questions I'd like to ask.
He stands for questioning.
Just kidding.
Okay, well, if there's no discussion or no additional questions, I would look for a motion that the board authorize the administration to name the new P3 student housing project on the Brenham campus, Prairie Lee Hall.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Wells,
Second.
second by Trustee Benke.
Unanimous.
Come on, Mosier.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good.
Thank you, trustees.
Great job. Okay. Now we move on to the executive session portion of our agenda, item number 7. In accordance with 551.071 and 551.072, We will now go into executive session at 6:34 PM.